Okay, so let's talk about the basking shark. It's the second biggest fish in the entire ocean. You usually see it just kind of gliding along near the surface, looking super peaceful. But that calm exterior, it hides this incredible biological puzzle, something that's had scientists scratching their heads for years. So, what on earth makes this gentle giant such a scientific mystery?
A hydrodynamic disaster. I mean, wow. That's a pretty intense thing to call an animal that's been around for millions of years. This quote from researcher Alexandra McInturf just nails the central question, right? How can the one thing a creature has to do to survive, the very act of eating, be so, well, disastrously inefficient?
And here's where it gets really wild. Guess who the basking shark's cousin is? The great white. No, I'm not kidding. One's a gentle giant that sips on plankton, the other's this apex predator. And yet, they share this absolutely shocking ability. They can both launch their huge bodies completely out of the water.
So that whole idea of them being slow and lazy? Yeah, throw that out the window. Researchers have actually tracked a basking shark going from almost 30 meters deep to flying out of the water in just over 9 seconds. It only took 10 big beats of its tail. This thing has the engine of a top-tier predator hiding in plain sight.
So today, we're going to try to unravel this puzzle. We'll look at why it's so much more than a gentle giant. We'll dive into this parachute mouth and the insane anatomy behind it, see how it forces the shark into a year-long chase for food, and finally, ask what makes its whole way of life so fragile.
All right, first things first, let's get right to the heart of it, that parachute mouth. This is the feature that defines the basking shark. It's the whole reason for that hydrodynamic disaster label. The basking shark is what we call an obligate ram filter feeder. Now, obligate is the key word here. It means this is the only way it can eat. It has to just keep swimming, mouth wide open, forcing water over these special gills that act like a sieve. It can't just stop and suck in water like some other huge filter feeders can. It's always on the move. Which brings us back to this perfect analogy. Seriously, just try to picture it. Imagine you're trying to run a marathon, but you've got a massive parachute strapped to your back, catching the wind. That's the basking shark's entire life. The amount of drag from that giant open mouth is just immense. It takes a crazy amount of energy just to eat. And to really get it, just compare it to the whale shark, the biggest fish in the world. The whale shark can actively suck in water, which gives it way more options for feeding. But our basking shark? It's locked into this one single high-drag, high-energy strategy. So how in the world does it make this seemingly terrible design work? Well, the answer is in its absolutely mind-blowing anatomy. So let's take a look inside the mechanism, because thanks to some new tech, we can finally see exactly what's going on when that giant mouth opens up. This is just a game changer. For the very first time, we're seeing the shark's entire head skeleton move in 3D while it's feeding. Researchers use CT scans and footage of sharks in the wild to create this incredible digital puppet, and it shows how every single piece moves together in perfect harmony. And the whole process is like this complex mechanical ballet. The jaws open, and then the entire framework of the throat flares forward and out. The floor of its throat just drops, and the whole basket of gills balloons outward, creating this huge funnel that guides all that water over 10 different sets of filters. It's amazing. And the result of all that movement? It's just staggering. These new models estimate that the shark's throat area expands by about 450% when it opens its mouth. It literally reconfigures its own head every time it takes a bite. And get this isn't some new trick it just learned. This super specialized toolkit, the gill rakers that make it all possible, they're so unique that scientists can actually spot them in the fossil record, going back more than 40 million years. So this disaster, it's actually an ancient, highly perfected survival strategy. Now, when your entire feeding system is this specialized and this energy intensive, your whole life is ruled by one single thing: finding enough to eat. It forces the shark into what is basically a year-long, non-stop feast, always following the food. And you can see this perfectly in how they move with the seasons. Take a look at the maps for the summer. You see them all clustered in these shallow coastal areas, just gorging on plankton blooms. But then watch what happens when winter comes. They all start moving way offshore into much, much deeper water. It's a total change of scenery. And this chart just shows how dramatic that change is. Look at the bar for July. They spend almost all their time right near the surface. Now, followed across to January, February, the bars just plummet. They're diving deep into the twilight zone, sometimes more than 1,000 meters down. They're living in a completely different ocean. And down in those dark, deep waters, they do this really fascinating thing, these repeated yo-yo dives. They just go up and down through the water column. Scientists think they might be tasting the water at different levels, looking for signs of food, or maybe even using it to navigate in the open ocean. But this super specialized life, living on such a razor's edge of energy, it has a major downside. The very things that have made the basking shark a success for millions of years also make it incredibly fragile, especially today. And a huge piece of that puzzle is just how slow they live. A female might not even be ready to have babies until she's 20 years old. Then a single pregnancy could last for up to 3 years. And after that, it might be another 2 to 4 years before she can have another litter. It's life in the absolute slow lane. So the bottom line is, when you take that incredibly slow life cycle and you combine it with modern threats, like getting accidentally caught in fishing nets or even being hunted for their oil and fins, their populations just don't stand a chance of bouncing back quickly. For 40 million years, this so-called hydrodynamic disaster has actually been an incredible story of success. It perfected a really tough way to make a living and mastered its little corner of the world. But the real question now is whether this ancient, slow, and highly specialized way of life can possibly survive the pressures we're putting on the oceans today.